The notification came at 2:17 in the morning. Daniel Carter was sitting alone in a quiet hotel room in Chicago, half asleep after a long day of meetings, when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally he would have ignored it, but the message on the screen made his chest tighten. New login detected on your home computer. Daniel frowned. His wife Emily should have been asleep by now. Back home in Dallas it was already past midnight. Still curious, he opened the remote security app connected to their home office computer. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The webcam showed the dim light of the office desk lamp. Emily was sitting there, wrapped in a gray sweater, her hair tied loosely back. She looked tired. Daniel smiled a little. He almost closed the app. But then the screen changed. A chat window popped up, and Emily started typing. Daniel watched, confused. She wasn't messaging him. She was talking to someone named M. The first message appeared. He's gone until Thursday. We can finalize everything tonight. Daniel's smile faded. His stomach tightened slightly. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was a friend. But something about the message didn't feel normal. The response came a few seconds later. Are you sure he won't find out? Emily typed back immediately. He trusts me. Daniel never checks anything. Daniel felt a strange chill crawl up his spine. He leaned closer to the phone screen. Then another message appeared. Once the policy pays out, we'll have enough to leave the country. Daniel blinked. For a second he thought he had read it wrong. He scrolled back up. The words were still there. Once the policy pays out. His heart began to pound. Emily's next message appeared slowly. $3 million is more than enough for both of us. Daniel stopped breathing. $3 million. That was the exact amount of his life insurance policy. The room suddenly felt colder, and Daniel realized something he never thought he'd feel about his own wife: fear. Because the woman typing on that screen was calmly discussing how much money she would get when he died. But Daniel didn't panic. Not yet. Instead, he kept watching, because something told him the truth was about to get even worse. Daniel had been married to Emily for 8 years. They met at a charity fundraiser in Dallas. He was an accountant working long hours for a logistics company. Emily was charming, funny, and seemed effortlessly warm with everyone she met. Their relationship moved quickly. Within a year they were married. Friends often said Daniel was lucky. Emily was beautiful, organized, and seemed completely devoted to him. At least that's what everyone believed. Their life looked perfect from the outside. A quiet suburban house, 2 cars in the driveway, weekend barbecues with neighbors, family holidays. But like most marriages, the reality was more complicated. Over the past year Daniel had noticed small changes. Emily had become distant. She spent more time on her laptop late at night. Sometimes she stepped outside to take phone calls. When Daniel asked about it, she always smiled and said it was nothing. He trusted her. Daniel had always been the kind of man who believed trust was the foundation of marriage. So he never pushed. And now he was sitting in a Chicago hotel room watching his wife plan something that made his blood run cold. The chat window continued. What about the timing? The other person asked. Emily typed slowly. The trip makes it perfect. If something happens while he's away, nobody will question it. Daniel's heart slammed in his chest. Something happens. The words echoed in his mind. He suddenly remembered something from earlier that week. Before leaving for Chicago, Emily had insisted he update his life insurance documents. She had even helped him log into the company portal. At the time, she said it was just smart planning. Now the memory felt different. Much darker. Another message appeared. Are you sure you can do it? Emily paused. Daniel watched her stare at the screen for a long moment. Then she typed. Yes. Once it's done, we'll disappear. Nobody will ever know. Daniel felt sick. He stood up from the bed and started pacing across the hotel room. His mind raced through 1,000 questions. Who was M? What exactly were they planning? And how far was Emily willing to go? Then another message appeared that made everything worse. "Did you move the money yet?" Emily responded. "Not yet. I'll transfer it tomorrow after the meeting with the lawyer." Lawyer. Daniel stopped pacing. This wasn't some emotional fantasy. This was organized, planned, carefully prepared. And suddenly Daniel understood something terrifying. Emily had been preparing this for months, maybe longer. But instead of confronting her, Daniel did something unexpected. He hit record. The security app allowed him to capture video from the webcam. If Emily was planning something this serious, he needed proof. He let the recording run. For the next 20 minutes he watched every message, every word, every detail, and what he learned slowly painted a horrifying picture. Emily wasn't just talking about leaving him. She was planning to fake his death. The conversation revealed everything: insurance paperwork, financial transfers, even discussions about making it look like an accident. Daniel felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The woman he loved, the woman he trusted more than anyone, was calmly planning a future that only worked if he was gone. But then the conversation took a strange turn. The other person typed something unexpected. "Once the payout clears, we leave immediately. No delays." Emily responded. "Agreed. After everything he's put me through, I deserve this." Daniel froze. Put her through? What was she talking about? He had never cheated, never hurt her, never even raised his voice in an argument. The message didn't make sense. But what he saw next confused him even more. Emily suddenly leaned closer to the screen. Then she said something out loud. Her voice was quiet, but the microphone picked it up. "I just need 3 more days." Daniel stared at the phone. 3 days. 3 days until what? And then something happened that changed everything. Emily closed the chat window. But she didn't leave the office. Instead, she opened another document. A legal document. Daniel leaned closer to the screen. His eyes scanned the page. And suddenly his heart skipped a beat. Because the document wasn't about his life insurance. It was about a trust fund. And the name listed at the top of the page wasn't Emily's, it was his. But what he saw next changed everything. Because the beneficiary listed under Daniel Carter's trust wasn't Emily. It was someone named Michael Turner. Daniel's mind spun. Who was Michael Turner? Why was his trust connected to this person? And why was Emily planning something involving both of them? The pieces didn't fit. But Daniel had a feeling the truth was about to be even more disturbing than he imagined. So he did the only thing he could. He booked the earliest flight back to Dallas. And he didn't tell Emily he was coming. When Daniel walked into his house the next afternoon, something felt wrong immediately. The place was too quiet. Emily's car was in the driveway. But the house felt empty. Then he heard voices. From the office. He moved slowly down the hallway. His heart pounding louder with every step. The office door was slightly open. Daniel pushed it gently. And what he saw inside froze him in place. Emily was sitting at the desk. And across from her was a man Daniel had never seen before. But what the man said next made Daniel's blood turn to ice. "Once Daniel is gone, everything transfers to you." Emily nodded calmly. "Exactly." Daniel stepped into the room. Both of them turned in shock. Emily's face turned pale. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" Daniel looked at both of them quietly. Then he placed his phone on the desk. The video recording was still playing. Every message, every word. Emily stared at the screen. Her face drained of color. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then Daniel finally said something. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I think you should start explaining." Emily looked at the man beside her. Then back at Daniel. And suddenly, she laughed. Not nervously. Not apologetically. Just laughed. And what she said next was the last thing Daniel expected to hear. "Daniel, you really should have checked your trust documents more carefully." Daniel frowned. "What are you talking about?" Emily leaned back in her chair. The fear was gone from her face. Now she looked confident, almost amused. 3 years ago, she said slowly, your father changed the conditions of your inheritance. Daniel felt his stomach drop. My father? Emily nodded. Yes. The trust activates if something happens to you. But the money doesn't go to me. Daniel's mind raced. Then he remembered the name on the document. Michael Turner. Emily gestured toward the man sitting across the desk. This is Michael Turner. Daniel stared at him. Emily smiled slightly. He's your half-brother. The room went silent. Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. My father never told me I had a brother. Emily shrugged. He didn't tell you a lot of things. Daniel looked at Michael. The man gave a small, awkward nod. Emily leaned forward. And if anything happens to you, the entire trust transfers to him. Daniel slowly turned back to her. Then why were you planning to run away with the insurance money? Emily's smile widened. That part wasn't for you to hear. Daniel felt a cold realization settle in his chest. You were planning to kill me. Emily tilted her head. Not exactly. Daniel stared at her. Emily's eyes hardened. You see, Daniel, I don't need you dead. She pointed at the trust document on the screen. I just need you to disappear. Daniel felt the room spin. Once you're declared missing, she continued calmly, the insurance pays out eventually. The trust transfers. And Michael and I walk away very wealthy. Daniel looked at Michael again. Are you really part of this? Michael hesitated, then slowly nodded. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of trust. All of it had been building toward this. But when he opened his eyes again, he smiled. Emily's confident expression flickered slightly. Because Daniel reached into his pocket and placed another phone on the desk, and pressed play. A voice filled the room. Dallas Police Department. This line is being recorded. Emily's face went completely white. Daniel looked at her quietly. You should have checked the security app settings more carefully. Emily's hands began to shake. Daniel continued calmly. The entire conversation last night was automatically backed up to the cloud. He nodded toward the window. And the officers outside have been listening for the last 10 minutes. Emily slowly turned toward the front yard. Red and blue lights flashed through the curtains. The front door slammed open. Heavy footsteps rushed into the house. And suddenly the entire plan she had spent months building collapsed in seconds. As the police officers walked into the office, Daniel looked at Emily one last time. And said quietly, You really should have trusted me a little less.